Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. 'Tis the season. The winter solstice, midwinter, the longest night, whatever you want to call it, is just around the corner, as is Christmas. I'm ready for it. I've got the tree, I got the lights, I've even got a festive beer here, taste to be determined. But in honor of the winter season, I decided to put together a winter TBR. So I have a stack of books, and when I say a stack, it is quite the stack, of books that I feel capture the very essence and aesthetic of winter. Cold, blustery, snowy. I'm so excited about it. This list is really aspirational, but why don't we just dive right in? In putting together this TBR, I noticed a trend, and that is that it is very Russia focused, with honorable mentions going to Scandinavia and Scotland, and there is a lot of historical fiction here. The first set of books that I want to talk about, though, are those fiction novels, is that redundant, that are set in Russia. So, the first book I want to talk about is actually The Witches of St. Petersburg by Imogen Edwards Jones. This book, it's historical fiction, surprise surprise, on this channel, but it's supposedly inspired by real people. So the book is about two sisters who marry into the Romanov court in Russia and are outsiders and befriend the Tsarina Alexandra, who's the last Tsarina of Russia, aka Anastasia's mother, who is also an outsider. The reason these sisters are outsiders seems to be because they are practitioners of black magic, among other things, and they happen to be the ones that introduce Rasputin to the court. And we know bad things happen once Rasputin enters the scene. So I'm intrigued. This book is marketed really well. It's described as, quote, brimming with black magic, sex, and intrigue, and I'm here for it. I am here for all the dark, intense, sexy that I hope this book will be able to deliver. And yeah, that's where I am on that one. So let's go on to the next. So the next book is, as I said, another book set in Russia, but that is Tsarina by Ellen Alpsten, and I just want to take a moment to appreciate this cover. This is the UK edition of the book. The US cover is absolute trash. I'll put it on the screen and you can either agree or disagree with me, but I hate it. So I'm glad that I managed to get a copy of the UK version. This is another historical fiction novel, but this one is about a different Tsarina of Russia. This is about Catherine Alexeyevna, and she is Peter the Great's second wife, also the Catherine that the Catherine the Great took her name from. It's supposed to be the story of her coming into power, so Peter the Great is dying and she's trying to hide that fact, hide his eventual death, and claim power for herself. And she just sounds like a badass, and I am so ready for this novelization of her life. She is a Russian political figure that I know of from my studies, but never studied her in particular. I feel like this book is going to lead to one of my famous rabbit holes, but I am here for it. I am here for this Catherine also becoming one of my historical girl crushes once that happens. That's just speculation on my part, but I can see it happening. Another one. And this is The Revolution of Marina M. by Janet Finch, and this is a more contemporary historical fiction in the sense that it happened during the 20th century. And it is supposed to be this coming-of-age story of Marina M. of the title. She's living during the Russian Revolution that leads to the execution of the Romanovs and all of that. But she's supposed to be well-to-do and kind of ends up getting swept up in the revolutionary movement, taking part in the workers' marches, falling in love with a poet or something like that. Basically doing all the things that a well-bred, wealthy woman should not do. Anything with a revolution, I'm here for. It's my jam. So I'm looking forward to sinking my teeth into this one. I think it will be fun. So I guess that's true of all of these books. Okay. Now we have Independence Square by A.D. Miller. And this is a fairly short novel, and I saw it described as a political thriller or political fiction. I'm not able to gather much about the plot from the descriptions I've seen, except that there is this diplomat that's been involved in some sort of scandal, and he blames this woman, Olyesa, for his downfall, and they happened to have met during a protest on Independence Square. I haven't been able to pinpoint the exact moment in history that this is supposed to take place in, but I think it's probably the 80s. Don't quote me on that. I will let you know once I've read the book. Okay, cool. But I am intrigued by this one, and it's different for me. So the next set of books are novels set in Scandinavia. Are we seeing a cold weather climate trend here? So the first book is The Mercies by Kirin, Millwood, Hargrove, and this is a book that has been sitting on my TBR for a while. Rosie over at Rosie Koksha has spoken about this multiple times on her channel, and she kind of pushed me over that TBR edge and made me decide I need to read this ASAP. And this is a book that is set in Norway during the 17th century, and apparently all of the men in this one village are killed during a storm, leaving an entire village of women, widows, and their children, and all that jazz. Enter onto the scene a male antagonist, I suspect, who is basically a witch hunter and has a track record of burning witches at the stake. I don't really know how those two plot points intersect, but I am here for it. Why this book has really fascinated me is because in 2019 I went to the Faroe Islands and I visited this village called Jugov, where in the 19th century about half of the male population were killed in a storm, similar to the situation that happened in this book. This is a bit of a situation where fact and fiction kind of blend a little bit for me, and I'm really interested in seeing how this plays out. Okay, so next up is The Glass Woman by Caroline Leah, and first of all, this cover is stunning. I just want to frame it. Like, it's just, I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. But this is another book set in the 17th century, this time in Iceland though, and apparently it is about a bride who moves with her new husband to the remote island or village that he calls home, and while there she must face the mysteries surrounding the death of his first wife. The book is described as a like in the vein of Jane Eyre and Rebecca, which are two books that are near and dear to my heart. There are very few comp titles that could be more appealing to me. There's only one that I can think of, and it'll come up later in this video, but if it's in that same vein of Rebecca, I'm down for this one. So I'm super excited. Can't wait. So the next book is Eventide by Therese Bohman, and this is translated from Swedish and is a woman in translation title. Gotta give a shout out there. But I think this is probably the most contemporary of the books in this video. It's supposed to be about an art professor who is kind of dealing with the fallout of a failed long-term relationship when she starts advising this post-grad student and things happen. I'm assuming romantic things. That's just kind of the vibe I'm getting. It's interesting to me because it does sound like it's supposed to be some sort of social commentary. One of the things that I read about the book is that it's really supposed to shed a light on the distorted standards to which women are held professionally and in relationships. So a little maybe feminist something happening here. It's not a long novel at all. It's not even 200 pages, 190 pages. So this one should be a quick read, I think. The next set of books are those novels set in Scotland, and I have two of them. And the first is The Lost Queen by Signe Pike, and this is actually the first book in a trilogy. Now this is the one that I'm talking about, a comparative title match made in heaven for me. It's compared to Mists of Avalon, which is probably my favorite book of all time, and then Outlander, which is probably my favorite series of all time. And it is set in Scotland, which I consider my soul country. I've had this conversation with friends before. People talk about soulmates, like you just know, and are meant to be together. That is how I feel about Scotland. When I was there, I just felt at home, even though I had never stepped foot in the country before. From what I gather, this is about a queen in 6th century Scotland, so fairly way back, who happens to be the twin sister of the druid that inspires the Merlin character from Arthurian legend. And I don't really know more than that. I really don't need to know more than that. I'm sold, and really looking forward to seeing if this lives up to those comp titles, because that's setting the bar really high for this one. So the next book is Sealskin by Su Bristow. This is a book that captured my attention again because of a connection to the Faroe Islands. So while I was in the Faroe Islands, I became aware of this legend there of a seal woman, and it's a story that they tell their kids. I actually bought a copy of the children's book, the illustrated children's book of the story, and a seal woman is a Selkie. And this book is about a similar Scottish legend of Selkies, and Selkies are basically these mythological creatures that are seals and then come ashore one night a year, basically pull or remove their seal skins and appear to be beautiful women. And so this book is about Selkies in Scotland, and really all I know about it is that the main character, I think his name is Doug or Douglas, Donald, this character Donald ends up marrying one of these Selkies. I know nothing else, and I'm still down. So yeah, that's really all I have to tell you about that one. Alrighty, so the final section of this TBR are the nonfiction books, and all of these nonfiction books are Russia focused. So the first one I want to talk about is The Diaries of Sofia Tolstoy, which is translated by Cathy Porter. And Tolstoy is an icon for me, but I have always been fascinated by Sofia Tolstoy and the wives of the Russian literary giants. There seems to have been this tradition of these wives also participating in the creation of their works, whether they were editors or the muses or the critics, the typists. Like, they were very involved, and Sofia Tolstoy was involved in her husband's creative process. I think she was one of his toughest critics and like typed out War and Peace or Anna Karenina like 3 times or something crazy, and those books are big. I am super interested in hearing from the woman herself. Sofia Tolstoy kept lots of diaries, and this is a selection of her own diary entries. So I am really looking forward to seeing how she views her relationship with Tolstoy, the man, the myth, the legend, because she is really intelligent in her own right, and I fangirl over her all the time, and also will read or watch anything about her, basically. So this is a big one, but this should be really interesting, just because I'm already hooked on this woman's reputation, and yeah. So the next book is one that is on my wish list. So I don't currently have it, but wink wink mother, Christmas is around the corner. And that is Catherine the Great, The Portrait of a Woman by Robert K. Massie. As I've mentioned on this channel, I have a serious historical crush on Catherine the Great. I have watched the HBO limited series with Helen Mirren, who I stan as Catherine the Great, multiple times, and am obsessed with it. But Catherine the Great as a political figure is just chef's kiss, and so I couldn't resist reading a biography on her. And I know a lot about her already from my studies, but I haven't actually read a biography on her, and I intend to fix that now. So the final book in this TBR is Molotov's Magic Lantern, Travels in Russian History by Rachel Polonsky, and I think this is part travelogue, part cultural history. The author, Rachel, moves to Moscow and ends up gaining access to this apartment and its library that once belonged to one of Stalin's henchmen, Molotov. And then she kind of explores all of the literary figures and areas of Russia that I assume get mentioned or have significance somehow. I don't really know, but considering that I read the works of many of the authors who are mentioned in the blurb, and my own just love for Russian history and Russian culture, I think this has my name written on it, and so it will be read, hopefully. But yeah, that's kind of all I know on that one. Alrighty, so with that, we have now wrapped up my winter TBR. It's, I think, 12 books. I didn't actually count before I started this video. I just know it's a big old stack. But I am looking forward to reading as many of these as I possibly can, while also kind of mood reading my way through the next couple of months with whatever else piques my interest and tickles my fancy and all of those cliches. As always, thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, maybe let me know if you're interested in any of these books or have read any of them already, and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Bye!